Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are absolutely delighted to see you here and welcome you to Cutting Edge Concerts. We are in a new venue. We've never performed here before, but it is a beautiful venue, as you can see, and all of this gorgeous artwork here is an added bonus. Well, we have a very special program for you tonight. First of all, I would like to thank our sponsors, Liana Sandin, who has made this concert possible. Thank you very much. And for the reception tonight, John Paterakis is providing refreshments, and we are so grateful to him and, of course, to Liana for making this possible. I'd like to ask you at this moment to silence your cell phones, to turn them on off mode, because we are recording and we are video recording this concert. So I know you wouldn't want to be the one to interrupt the program. So this program is about two very unusual flutes, the Japanese shakuhachi and the Native American flute. And to begin the program, I would like to welcome James Schlafer, who will talk to us about do you want to hold one, or would you rather on the stand? Okay, well.
Hi there. Hi.
James is a master shakuhachi player and has the equivalent, of a black belt or a...
No, something like that. Brown belt.
Brown belt, red belt. And his piece is called Sidewalk Dances, and I'll let him tell you a bit about it.
Okay, so many of you may know that the shakuhachi has an association with Zen Buddhism. The traditional music of shakuhachi, which stretches back many centuries, was created as a form of meditation practice. So the traditional music tends to be very abstract, lots about sound and silence, not so much rhythm or anything of that nature. And that's the repertoire that really drew me to the instrument in the first place, because I found it so powerful and so penetrating in a way that Western music did not have, although I love Western music too, don't get me wrong. However, I decided that the shakuhachi needed some more lively sounds as well. So my music tends to be very lively. And so my idea with Sidewalk Dances was really about rhythm. And I'm a native New Yorker, and as many of you are, I'm sure, you know, getting down to the subway and the door's about to close and you want to make it in there, so you hustle to get in there. And you're walking down the sidewalk and people are in your way, moving around. And so you're like just always moving around. So it's about rhythm. And but I also love, on those occasions when I can be out in the country, to have that different kind of rhythm, where the sun goes up and the sun comes down. And you know it's morning because the birds start chirping. And I love that too. So, and they're kind of extremes. And so this piece is kind of extreme in that way.
Well, you've got some blues in there too, some very jazzy blues.
Yeah, well, my music reflects my heritage.
Wonderful. Well, we'll look forward to hearing the piece, and I'd like to welcome Caleb von der...
Rock and roll.
So the next piece is going to be an improvised duet between the shakuhachi flute, which you just heard, and the Native American flute. And for that, I would like to welcome Ron Warren. So Ron, before you play, let's talk a bit about your instrument and about your work, because improvisation is a large part of what you do.
It is, and it's a very important part of our tradition. James referred to the really important classical Zen repertoire of shakuhachi playing. Our flutes don't have a repertoire tradition, except for a few cultures like the Lakota, who use the flute traditionally as a courting instrument. And so they do have courting songs that they can learn if they wish. But for among my people, the Cherokee, it's mostly a social instrument. And so there's a lot of jamming and hanging out and just having a good time with your friends.
Speaking of jamming and hanging out,
Yeah.
I understand that you came, I wouldn't say late, but not immediately to your own traditional music, that you grew up with, I guess, rock and roll and popular music and
all kinds of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't. It was a very, very long path. So I don't. We don't have time to really get into that tonight. But if you hang, I think is there a reception afterwards?
There is a
Yeah,
reception
so
afterwards.
If you're interested in that, we can certainly talk about it. I'm happy to talk about it.
Well, one thing I would like to talk about is your flute and the similarities and differences between that and the shakuhachi.
Sure.
They're both wooden flutes, and as you know, the classical symphonic flute that we know in Western music is made of metal, usually silver, sometimes platinum, sometimes gold. But this is a wooden instrument.
It is. The shakuhachi is a bamboo instrument, yeah. And among my people, among the Cherokee, our favorite material to use traditionally is river cane, which is very much like bamboo. It's just indigenous to the Americas. A lot of the Plains folks, though, prefer cedar. So all of the flutes I'm playing tonight are made of cedar, and I consider all of them to be kind of a contemporary hybrid Native American style flute based on traditional style instruments. But a lot of our makers now tweak traditional tunings just enough that if we want to work with musicians from other traditions, we can do that a little more comfortably.
James, why don't you come out here and let's take a look at your instrument. This is a bamboo instrument, and we didn't have a chance to talk about it before your piece, but we heard it. And
Yeah, this is a solid one stalk of bamboo, and it's hollowed out, and a notch at the top, and 5 holes. Traditional instrument. I have a couple extras on this, again, to be able to play contemporary music. So slightly modified, but not really. And in Japan, they have the 7 lucky gods. Okay, and so the shakuhachi has, bamboo has these nodes. So when they harvest the bamboo, they find it the right length, and they count the nodes: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 at the top. That way, when we play the low note on the instrument, all the gods are happy.
and we're happy too.
Among the Cherokee, our traditional way we had of scaling out the flute was that the flute can be about as long as your arm. And the distance from the cutting edge, where the sound is produced, to the top finger hole can be about the width of your hand. The distance between each of the finger holes about the width of your thumb. Same for the bore of the flute. Right? Then if you're a good flute maker, you know where to cut the end off, so it sounds good. Okay, so just so you have an idea of what poor James is having to deal with tonight, this is what we are playing from tonight. So the program notes give you an idea of why it looks like this, all right? But this is what it looks like. And we're free to play the tree bark, which is the photo that I made that is kind of the basis for this particular piece. I invited James to choose which one of these we would do tonight, and he chose one seasonally for early spring, which is just perfect. Of course, early spring is a little different in Orlando than it is in Manhattan, but that's okay. We can live with it. These pieces can last as long as they need to, but fear not. We've been asked to keep it to about 5 minutes for tonight. But Yeah, we'll see what happens tonight.
Well, the next work on our program involves the inimitable Paul Barnes. And Paul, why don't you take the other microphone and we'll talk about it, because this was a work that you arranged for, it's originally from the Philip Glass
Piano Concerto
Number 2,
Right.
which I believe, is this the one that you
I
commissioned?
commissioned it. In fact, I still remember the very first meeting I had with an administrator at the University of Nebraska to talk about fundraising was on 9/11/2001. And it was a very fateful morning. And it was interesting because this afternoon, my chanter friend and I, Joel, were at St. Nicholas, the church that's finally been rebuilt at that exact same site. So it's bittersweet to be able to play this wonderful piece that kind of began with that tragic event.
Indeed. Well, this piece is not a tragic one. This is a very contemplative one. And you have arranged it for Native American flute, which will be played by Ron Warren, and originally for bass, but it's
That's
going to
correct.
be played by Caleb on the cello.
That's
and
correct.
I think the cello just sounds divine with this.
It's the first time we've ever heard it with cello, and it does sound beautiful.
Yes.
I do need to say that if it were not for the Piano Concerto No. 2, I would have never met Ron Warren, because he is the second movement that you're going to hear. It obviously is scored for Native American flute, and that's how I did the premiere with R. Carlos Nakai, and then Ron stepped in and has been doing it, ever since whenever I have a performance. Ron is my flute player of choice.
Go-to person. Yes, indeed. Well, we're excited to hear it, and
Thank you.
Let us
Great.
proceed. So next on the program is a piece that I wrote called Rashomon, and I realized that I didn't introduce myself, and some of you I have never met before. My name is Victoria Bond, and I am the founder of Cutting Edge Concerts, and we're delighted to have you here. Well, thank you. So as we're getting set up, let me just tell you a little bit about this piece. This is not a contemplative piece. It's about a murder. And the Rashomon effect is something that you probably are all familiar with. It is, let me see, let's squeeze in here. The Rashomon effect is when there are many different versions of what actually happened. And we are not told which one is the right one. Everyone has a different perspective on this particular murder. Those of you who are familiar with the film Rashomon, Kurosawa film, know that it is done in a very stylistic manner. So the first introduction of this piece is the gate itself. Rashomon simply means the gate. And it's kind of a dreary scene. It's raining, and the people gather to talk about this murder. And as you will see in your program notes, there are several different versions of the murder: a cold, calculated murder, a crime of passion, many different ways of telling this story, and different people's versions. As I say, we never are told which is the true version. So it's a murder mystery, and it's up to you to decide who done it. Ladies and gentlemen, you're having too much fun. All right, let's see if we can get everybody back. There might be, yeah. All right, well, we do have a reception, and I don't want to end this too late so that you have a chance to party with us and have something to drink and eat and all those good things. So, our second half of the program will feature flutist Ron Warren and pianist Paul Barnes, and I've asked them to come and talk with me about this so that we can just have some general conversation about the pieces. So,
Sure.
Wonderful. Well, Ron, it would be great if you could start about talking a little bit about the love song for this earth, because that's really the generation of the entire project.
Yeah, when Paul asked me to write this piece for him, we just started comparing notes about it. Was almost all of my music is a music of place. And that's not to say that it's nature music. I don't think of it as nature music. That's a stereotype. You know, all you Indians, you're so in tune with nature and all of that, and you know, I get tired of that. But when I say it's a music of place, it's really important to be in right relationship with the place that you're in and with all the beings that share that place with you. And so working towards that is where most of my music emerges from. Like the Luna Si Agua pieces are about when I moved to Florida, getting in right relationship with this new place that I was in and with the beings that allowed me to share that space with them. So Paul and I started talking about some of our favorite places, and he was heading off to, Paul is a wonderful cantor, Orthodox cantor, and he was heading off to a retreat at a monastery in the desert Southwest. I've spent a lot of time there. I love that place. Some of my favorite indigenous poets are from there. And so we started kind of gravitating towards that as a place from which our project could emerge. And I'd like to share with you the title of the piece is The Way of Mountains and Desert. And I'd like to share for you a poetic excerpt from one of my favorite indigenous poets, Ophelia Zepeda, a Tohono O'odham poet, from close to the Tucson Mountains. And this is from her collection of poetry called Where Clouds Are Formed. And she calls to the mountains in her place. She calls to them. She calls them in her language. Then she calls them in English and by their Spanish names. And then she says this: "It has been said before, these mountains will not listen if we simply speak words to them. They will only hear us if we come with melody, rhythm, pitch, and harmony. For these circling mountains, we must speak with voices and songs, rhythmic speeches, orations, and prayers. We must be prepared with repetition, a singular, undisturbed beat. That is the way of mountains. This is what they want to hear."
Beautiful.
So she doesn't say the mountains, right? The mountains are not there for us to, as objects for us to meditate on for our individual salvation or something. You know, they're not there for us to use as metaphors to work out our inner turmoil and all that kind of thing, right? They are beings. Right? This is the music Mountain wants to hear. And so that also kind of captures that sense of place that I'm talking about, that it's not nature music the way we often think of nature music. It's music that emerges from trying to be in right relationship with the place that you're in.
And Paul, I think, has a score to show us.
I did want to show you a little bit because I'd like to be able to.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I should say, though, the vast except for this page, this looks like standard classical piano music. Right, but this is like the Luna Si Agua. Paul does have an opportunity to do his own thing for a while, right?
Yeah, and this is a good marker because this is the last piece. There's a fascinating creation narrative that involves turtles stacked up on top of each other, and it was from a book that you gave me that was wonderful. And so when you see the turtle up on my iPad, you'll know that that is the end of the second movement, and then we'll be moving into the love song. One of the things that I love about what Ron did, particularly, and it's most obvious in the last movement, is this idea of the ground, you know, and he takes the love song, which you will hear on the native flute, and then it's the third movement of this work, and he takes 8 notes, the first 8 notes of the love song, and makes that the foundation of the entire piece, really. You'll hear it in the water piece, right in the opening notes, and then it becomes the ground for the finale. And so what I love about that is it's this idea, that's basic truth that I affirm, is that love is the foundation of existence. And when that happens, and we can hear those words, but when we experience that in a piece of music, it is infinitely better.
And just from a technical standpoint, I really love the keyboard music of William Byrd. And so there's some sense in which the last movement of this is in dialogue with his second ground, which I really appreciate. It's not modeled on it in any specific kind of way. But, and the love song that is the third movement that Paul was mentioning is basically a piano version of what I'm about to play for you now. It almost happens all the time for me now that pieces originate as flute songs. It's just kind of where I am with my music making now, that as I allow things to emerge, they almost always emerge on the flute first. And so the love song that is the third movement is a piano version of what I'm going to share with you now.
Well, thank you for sharing this with us.
Well, thank you all so much for being here tonight. It's been a real pleasure being here. It's such a beautiful space. So really, many thanks to the Kosciuszko Foundation for hosting and being so gracious and helpful. And many thanks to Victoria for all the important work that she does and all the support she gives to all of us and makes things like this possible. We have a couple of short little pieces to share with you to close things out tonight. This is from a set of pieces. There are 4 pieces actually, but you don't need all of them all at once, so we're just doing 2 tonight. And they're called beads. Our beadwork is a very important traditional art for us, but the glass beads that we always think of now are a trade item. We didn't have those until the visitors came from overseas. We used bone and wood and all kinds of other stuff before that. But we see a good thing, we make use of it, right? And it becomes a tradition. So the idea of these is that they're the little pieces, like little individual beads, and you can kind of string beads together into bigger patterns if you want to. And tonight we're just going to have a little pattern to send us on our way.
us any questions or give us any comments.